It took me 7 years to not learn Spanish. I studied in school and did all my homework, but in the end, I had almost nothing to show for it. I can understand a tiny bit, but I have zero conversational skills and an active vocabulary of maybe 100 words. I would never claim to be a fluent speaker of Spanish. In contrast to that, I became conversational in Japanese in 3 years, and it took me 6 months to learn about the same amounts of Mandarin. I don't think anyone considers Japanese or Mandarin to be that much easier than Spanish. There's something else going on. Of course, I had the added benefit of many years of studying when I started learning Japanese and Mandarin. But more than that, there was one ingredient that was missing from Spanish. And even for Japanese, I failed to really use that ingredient in a productive way. The main point is that I learned Spanish in school, and so I didn't choose to learn it. I had to. I didn't have the Spanish language around me. I had two friends who spoke it, but I never heard them speaking it. And I was a pretty shy kid who closed themselves off to a lot of new things. So I never thought to make an effort to learn Spanish because everyone around me drilled into my head that learning a language would take a long time and it just seemed like it wasn't worth it. It felt like a pain in the ass to learn, especially considering that I never imagined I'd live overseas when I grew up. My teachers did their best to try and make class fun, but the environment of school just didn't work for me. Having to sit in the chair and raise my hand for everything, taking tests, making speeches against my will. It took all the fun out of it. I don't blame my teachers. I think they were doing their best. This is just one of my issues with formal education in general. It's driven by a need to display quantifiable results. Something I learned much later in university, though, is that my potential was always really hampered by the incentive structure of tests and basically punishment for failing. I realized that when I let my curiosity run wild, I'm way better at learning. I think this is basically the case with everyone. The only problem, though, is that curiosity is kind of beat out of us when we're kids. We have all these formalities of the structured learning style. I don't think it's really conducive for efficient learning. I have a student with a 9-year-old daughter who really proves this point. Her daughter's never had a chance to speak English before, but she watches YouTube because she likes Minecraft. So she watches lots of Minecraft videos. Just watching these videos out of her own curiosity, she's basically picked up the entire language. She speaks with very few grammatical mistakes, and her accent is almost perfect. A lot of people blame that on her age. People generally think it's easier for kids to learn, and it probably is, but how much is really due to brain plasticity and how much is due to the way kids look at the world? And if it's just a matter of changing the perspective, then couldn't adults also be able to look at the world the way that kids do and learn the way that they do to some extent? My experience basically tells me that it's possible to learn anything at any time, and you can do it a lot faster than schools or courses will tell you. We can't change our brain plasticity, but we can change how interested we are in things. We can work on becoming more curious about the world. Everything's a muscle that we can work on. All it really takes is following the things that excite us, especially the things that take us out of our comfort zone. Of course, it's easier said than done, but it's doable. The first example that comes into my mind is, let's say we're watching a movie from another country. Something about the movie sparks some curiosity about that country. How often do we follow that line of curiosity and actually go seek out that information that we're curious about or start to research things related to whatever it was that we were curious about? How often do we even notice that we're feeling curious? I think a lot of times we just kind of let that curiosity pass as we're watching the movie and we forget about it later. We tend to dismiss curiosity as something trivial and find quick dopamine hits and addictions, which are much easier, but they leave us less fulfilled. In my case, I felt like things were too difficult. Everything felt too difficult. And so I kept putting everything off. I internalized that need for results that I learned in school, and it really held me back for a long time. For years, I kept saying, oh, I really want to learn this, or I really want to practice this, but I kept putting those things off. I put less pressure on myself to achieve results now, and so curiosity can flow a lot more easily. Once the curiosity starts flowing, you start to notice that it leads on to curiosity about other things. And at some point, the curiosity just becomes endless. It just leads in it branches out in so many different directions, and the possibilities grow with that. There are always some skills that we learn because we need them for life or to achieve some kind of goal. In those situations, I think it's basically just about trying to make the process as fun as possible. My example would be that I want to make music. I want to record myself. I'm not that interested in the recording process. I like just making songs and singing songs. But if I want to share what I've made, then it's probably best if I learn how to use some recording software. If I were to just sit down and learn how to use the software from a tutorial or something like that, it would be kind of torturous for me. I'm just really not into it. But if I make it part of my songwriting process where I experiment with the sounds I can make and I start to write something while I'm recording, or just experiment with the software in general and learn as I go along instead of learning in a really systematic way, it works much, much better for me. So I search for information as I need the information. If I want to learn how to use the delay effect, I'll search how to record delay in Ableton. Ableton is the software I use. Or adding guitar effects in Ableton. If there's a certain sound that I'm looking for, I'll seek out that sound and how to make that sound. And just piece by piece, I learn how to use the software. Once I get more comfortable with the software, then at some point I might want to actually go out and study some tutorial or some kind of more formalized process. Once you start building up a capacity for curiosity, you find that it's really endless. There are just too many things that you end up being curious about. 3 years ago, I was curious about what was so special about cryptocurrency. So I went to find out what the top 100 coins were used for. Now I'm really only interested in cryptocurrency's ability to spread wealth to people that didn't have access to it before. But the process of learning about these 100 coins led me to become more curious about how other things work. Now I'm a lot more competent in how markets work, how international trade works, the stock market, things like that, which are things that I was never interested in before. But it's just that line of curiosity went from one thing to another, as it tends to do. I'm not sitting around trading stocks or crypto all day. I'm mostly just interested in understanding which direction countries and industries are heading so I can navigate the world better. Sometimes curiosity gets blocked behind fear, and so facing the fear or frustration or finding acceptance in something can help to open up those channels of curiosity. I used to hate social media because I felt that the algorithms didn't like me. I thought that the kind of person that I am just can't reach other people. But once I stopped feeling angry about it, I started to just feel this pang of curiosity about what made the algorithms work the way they do. And so I started to study the algorithms. The whole process of experimentation led to me making videos like this. So that's basically how this works. After years of following my curiosity, I'm starting to see these different things that I've been curious about finally come together in a web that makes a lot of sense to what I'm trying to achieve in my life. I see my curiosity about language and culture and my desire to create music and stories, my interest in cryptocurrency and economics and social media and self-development. They're all starting to really come together into something that for me is really beautiful. That's basically how curiosity works. It's inspiration, but it can take years to coalesce into something that's really tangible, something that we can use. If we want everything to have an immediate result, then we'll miss out on a lot of the bigger opportunities in life. It can be the difference between getting a certification for some kind of skill and being someone who has a deep understanding of that skill. I can only imagine where I'd be right now if I let my curiosity lead me from the time I was in high school studying Spanish. But in the end, I think we can only be happy for where we are and try to keep moving in the direction we want to move in. No regrets, right?